12, you drive 1 block out of the city, you're in the park.
Really?
Yeah, it's cool. All right, we're ready?
Ryan is now.
Ready. All right, good evening and welcome to the Chaska City Council meeting for Monday, October 5th, 2020. We are at the Chaska Event Center again. We'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Will you please stand and join me in a pledge of allegiance? Do we have a flag, Kevin? Kevin, can you put a flag up? I like the middle one. There we go. Now maybe it's not so funny when I said we should have a flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. New budget item, flag for event center.
You were just on Amazon, just buy.
That is in his phone, so yes, we're.
All right, moves us to roll call. Nate, we call roll, please.
Councilmember Hatfield.
Here.
Councilmember Hubbard. Here. Councilmember Wong. Here. Councilmember Graw.
Here.
Mayor Winchell.
Here. All right, moves us to item number 3, adopting the agenda. Are there corrections or additions to the agenda? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Wong. Second by Hatfield, I believe. Discussion. Hearing none. Graw.
Yes.
Councilmember Hubbard.
Yes.
Councilmember Wong.
Aye.
Councilmember Hatfield.
Yes.
Mayor Winchell, yes. Passes 5-0, moves us to item 5. What's this, proclamations, but that's under visitor so. Anyways, we'll move in. I have 2 proclamations to read tonight. So we'll start with, what do I have? Okay, so this is in recognition of the National Pregnancy and Infant Loss. Whereas Infants Remembered in Silence, Inc., IRIS, and many other nonprofit organizations work with thousands of parents all over Minnesota and across the United States who have experienced the death of a child during pregnancy through early childhood. And whereas many of these parents live in, deliver in, have a child die in, or bury a child in our community. And whereas Infants Remembered in Silence is a 501c3 nonprofit organization which was founded in 1987, 33 years ago, to offer support for parents whose children died from miscarriage, ectopic pregnancy, molar pregnancies, stillbirth, neonatal death, birth defects, sudden unexplained death of a child, sudden infant death syndrome, illness, accidents, and all other types of infant and early childhood death. And whereas bereaved parents around the world remember their children annually on October 15th while candle lighting at 7 p.m. Some will remember their children in their homes, while others will remember them in small gatherings around the state, across the nation, and around the world. And this would unify these parents in tribute to their children. And whereas in 1988, President Ronald Reagan proclaimed October as National Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. Whereas in honor of these thousands of children that die each year in Minnesota, Infants Remembered in Silence respectfully request that October 15th, 2020 be recognized as Pregnancy and Infant Loss Remembrance Day. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Mark Winchell, Mayor of the City of Chaska, on behalf of the City Council and the citizens of Chaska, do hereby approve that October 15th, 2020 be recognized as Pregnancy and Infant Loss Remembrance Day. Witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and the seal of the city of Chaska this 5th day of October in the year of our Lord, 2020. So I'm gonna sign this one real quick, and then we have one other one to follow. All right, this one is in a recognition of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Whereas in the city of Chaska, in recognition of the critical work being done by domestic violence advocates in service of the survivors, victims they serve, we encourage all citizens to actively engage in the work and events sponsored by Southern Valley Alliance and other organizations working toward an eradication of domestic violence. And whereas more than 20,000 calls are placed to domestic violence hotlines nationwide every day. And whereas the impact of domestic violence is felt not only by individuals and families, but communities and a nation as a whole. And whereas Chaska joins with others across the state of Minnesota and nationwide in supporting domestic violence victims and survivors, the advocates and the organizations who serve them, and holding offenders accountable in Chaska. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Mark Winshuttle, Mayor of the City of Chaska, on behalf of the City Council, the citizens of Chaska, do hereby proclaim October 2020 as Domestic Violence Awareness. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and the seal of the City of Chaska this 5th day of October in the year of our Lord 2020. Comments? I know that the Southern Valley Alliance has been to council many times and came and talked about the work that they do. We certainly support the work that they do and hope that they continue to do their work. And I think about the other one. Back in the days when I ran ambulance here in Chaska, that I don't know how many of those deaths that we went on with. I mean, it was always called SIDS at the time. That was, I mean, there was a lot of them, and you don't hear that anymore. So they learned something from all of that we went through back in the 80s and the early 90s about all the calls that we went, ambulance calls that we went on, and they were devastating to families. I witnessed too many of them, unfortunately, but I'm so happy to hear that you rarely ever hear that, so that they've done some great work and figured out ways that they can prevent that. And, you know, obviously accidents are accidents, but we're working on the other things. So we certainly support both organizations and thank them for all their efforts that they do. So. Right, anyone else with any comments? Okay. Is there anyone else under visitor presentation? I don't see anyone. Kevin at home? Mike? Nobody on? I asked this time, first time.
He is on.
What?
Kevin's on the agenda.
He's on the agenda.
He's doing the website.
Oh, yeah.
Forgot him.
I did, I missed that. So, Mr. Kevin Wright, would you like to come up and speak to us? We would. Yeah. State your name and address for the record, please.
Kevin Wright, 3144 Challen Avenue South, apartment 603,
Slow down a little bit, it's hard to write that fast.
Minneapolis, Minnesota, 55416. For a few more weeks at least.
So Mr. Wright is going to talk about the new city website. So he's going to take over that and drive here for a while. So
Want to know what that for a few weeks means?
Oh yeah, right. We're moving to St. Louis Park, so moving closer. Trying to get where the mayor used to work as much as I can.
what did he say?
It's like we'll gain
Did he
inch
pick on
by
me?
inch, town by town.
Just kind of slowly migrate back closer. Well, never. Wouldn't dream of it. Anyway, I'm Kevin Wright. I'm the communications manager for the city of Chaska.
Mask off as you present. I know.
Did you hear me okay with it on?
No.
No? All right, fair enough.
It's freaky for you, but
I usually have this thing glued onto my face. It's cozy. Anyway, communications manager for the city of Chaska. So I just wanted to come to you today to really talk about our website redesign process. So we've been going through this for about just over a year now, actually. We have a contract to run our website or to kind of operate the back end or set up the platform through Civic Plus, who's a government website provider that does a lot of different government websites. Once you have one, it's pretty easy to spot another one. So sometimes when I go to other cities' websites, I'm like, oh, I can always talk to them about some of the things I'm working on. As a part of our contract with them, we actually do get a redesign or kind of, it's really more of a refresh that you can do with them. And so like every 3 or so years. So we started back in October of last year, and we're really kind of getting close to being finished or getting kind of the design process going in February. And then COVID came, and we had to kind of shift our focus for a little while. We were able to get it restarted back in June. And so really we've been kind of working since June to kind of get it finished up. So it wasn't just me doing it, which is great for everybody, that we had a whole internal team kind of built to kind of help with the redesign project. Civic Plus also had a project team helping us through the different steps as well. So we really kind of wanted to represent a multiple different departments from Parks and Rec, administration, municipal services, and then police. So that was kind of who made up our group. So it was people that kind of touch different areas of what the city does and who uses the website. So our elements of redesign that we kind of focused on, number one is really accessibility. That's a big keyword really in anything we do. So in the past few years, and I don't know, past even 10 years really, there's been a big push. Obviously, accessibility in a public space like this is something everyone's kind of aware of. You need to have the ability to have everyone use it. On the website side, is everyone's really bringing that more into focus on usability, and is there areas that are really going to be distracting or difficult for a user to use. So accessibility is number one. And then we had an emphasis on mobile. So obviously the phones, iPads, all the different types of things that people are using to access the internet and to visit our website. We really wanted it to be mobile friendly. Our current website, if you've ever tried to go on it on a phone or an iPad, it's very difficult. It was made in 2013, I think. So it's definitely outlived its life for mobility. So that's why we really wanted to kind of focus on the elements we put in there that make sure when you go from a full-size screen down to a mobile screen, it's still usable. And then visually appealing, I think, obviously, we want something that looks good. The design process, the biggest part of this was a migration for the Parks and Rec department. So we took so right now they operate on the chaskacommunitycenter.com. So if you go to look to see what programs or when pool hours are, it's all on chaskacommunitycenter.com, which is on a platform that is being retired, or actually already kind of has been retired. So this was a perfect opportunity to take their content and move it over to Civic Plus. So this is a new experience for them to be able to kind of use Civic Plus. So we were able to use that as a chance to get a new look for their website and kind of also somewhat rebrand it more as Parks and Recreation as kind of overarching theme. Because if you go on our website or kind of see what we have on an online platform right now, there's really no Parks and Rec. There's the community center, which has Parks and Rec opportunities and offerings and activities underneath it, but there's no overarching Parks and Rec site. So, and then this also creates a better back end. Synergy is a great business word, so it's always fun to put that in there. But it's really, so if we need to kind of cross post or change pages, we have the ability to know both platforms. So if I need to help out with theirs, or if they need to help out with ours, everyone's kind of using the same platform. All right, now you got through all the boring parts, so now you would see the actual site. So, see, I was playing around on this. As you may all be familiar with, this is our current site. We've done some things to try to make it a little bit more visual. It does take a little bit more work than what our new site will, but this you can kind of see how much this needs some love and attention. So this is what will be our new homepage. So you can kind of see how we've really kind of focused on, again, with that accessibility in mind, there's that color contrast there that really kind of stands out more so than on our current homepage. Our current homepage, the buttons across the middle are not even really, they don't stand out as well. So we kind of removed the buttons. It's another mobile friendly idea too, where we really wanted to make sure that if you're going to another page, those buttons don't just constantly show up at the top of your page and you have to scroll all the way through them to get to the content you want. So we kind of moved a lot of our enterprise funds up to this top bar here where you can kind of see it says Chaska Event Center, Journaling Center Employment, kept all our screen and then really kind of kept that top bar as kind of those main focus items. And then we have our news. Again, you can see it stands out more. The Citizen Help Center is something we've added. It's just another way to kind of graphically illustrate some projects or other things that we may want to put on the home page. So if we're noticing people are having trouble accessing the police page or the fire department page or really any page, or if we have a project we want to highlight, this is another way we can kind of bring that to the home page and make it easier for someone to see and or click on it. And then we're bringing back our calendar as well. So we also did our best to eliminate any kind of slideshow elements where pictures are kind of just moving constantly without you moving them. In the accessibility world, that's always something where it can create kind of a distraction or just make it difficult for someone to kind of effectively navigate a page. So we really wanted to make sure it's all kind of user controlled. So there is a carousel effect with the news items, but it's all controlled by you. You can either have it move or not. So here's an internal page. So this is our police department page. You may have seen that we've already kind of started some graphics on here to kind of make it easier to find things. But let's see if I have this. The screen control thing is always right in the way. That's that. Must have lost it. Oh boy. I had it in there. Oh well. You'll just have to trust me that it looks better. I had it up, but for whatever reason, I must have timed out. And I don't have trust me on it. You can see it's a lot of the same kind of elements, and maybe I can do it from in here. Anyway, well, we'll get to that, but it won't be with the police page. But anyway, so then the Parks and Recreation Department also kind of has it's really their website. They have, again, it's going to follow some of the similar concepts of our homepage, but they'll be able to have their own URL. So they're actually going to have a new one called chaskaparksandrec.com, which will then take you, if you type that in, that'll take you to this homepage here. And the chaskacommunitycenter.com URL will still work, and it'll just take you to the Chaska Community Center page internally here. But you can see there's the similar layout, but they're able to kind of put their own information in here, their resources, and highlight kind of their calendars as well. So similar look and feel, but they're able to kind of customize it a little bit to what they want to do. So let's see. So if you can imagine, this is what our internal pages used to look like. There's kind of tough to see the sidebar there, and it's just really just a lot of white. This is what all of our internal pages will look like. Ours on this main city website are blue instead of green here, but similar concept. So you can kind of see how the page still kind of jumps out a little bit more. you're able to actually see the sidebar items. We changed it to a little plus sign versus an arrow. It's a little bit easier to kind of navigate that and see that there's more information under there, we found, versus trying to hover over this little plus sign and then have another menu kind of come up. And then I'm sure all of us have experienced that, where you thought you've hovered over and clicked it and then it disappears on you. So it's much more user-friendly, I think, to kind of have it kind of drop down and then you can click on what you want to visit. Any questions on that while I still had that up?
So you mentioned you're focusing on accessibility as one of the items. Are you using the WCAG 2.1 accessibility standards right now, or what's the level you're shooting for?
I don't even know if there is a 2.1 or if there's another one that's actually, is there a 2.2 now? I
2.1, but
think it's because there's 2.0 and then 2.1 is the new one maybe. Yeah, so that's what Civic Plus actually helps us with through this process. So when we actually go through the redesign process, all the back end stuff that they take care of is all the way up to it's level 2A. There's A, AA, AAA. AAA is most of the time people are told to kind of get to AA. It's kind of what you want to go to.
So once we have that, because even then there's things that you could do like stylistically that still may end up violating the WCAG like guidelines inadvertently, just because you're trying to make something look nice. So do we like have them like, do an audit pass against it, or do you use tools to like validate that it's actually compliant with that? Or
yeah, so we use Moncito, which is a website accessibility checker. So we kind of already have that and have used that before. And so that actually kind of constantly scrolls our website and kind of pings things that are something that needs to be looked at. We've adjusted some of those, just even if you look at the home page here with the graphic buttons here, that color contrast isn't really up to what it needs to be. So, eliminating that gets us out of there. We had at one point a top bar that had a sign-in function that we removed because, again, same thing with color contrast. You're going to really, most of the time you run into an issue is with color contrast. Sometimes it's tabbing function, but and with accessibility, and we've gone through some webinars and also some in-person training with Civic Plus as well. But you're never going to be at 100%. You're always going to keep trying to, it's a continual, it's making that effort to get as compliant as you can.
And similarly on a related topic, are we looking at having multilingual support, like using the L10N features within Civic Plus to support like localization for Spanish or Somali or whatever it is you choose?
Yep. So if you look down at the bottom of the screen, there's that select the language, the Google Translate. So that's Civic Plus still has access to that. So that's still brought into the website as well. So
it's done as an on-demand service as part of the site, where the site basically links back and it pulls in Google to do the translation, but it's not as if the site's natively built with the multiple languages in it.
It is not. I mean, there are some pages which we've done with some of our information we've put on the community information report with the police department, or I think the council's message after the death of George Floyd. Those things we've put in multiple languages kind of as a native platform.
Which is good, because a lot of times like Google doesn't necessarily pick up on some of the nuance we want to communicate, and some of those things that could be kind of sensitive to. I mean, it's one thing, it's just like a menu, it's not a big deal, but if it's something where like you're trying to communicate something that's pretty important, yeah. So those things we want to do by hand.
Yeah, and that's always still kind of one of our missions, really, is in communications with our community as well, is to continue to build on that. And we've been building some relationships to be able to have someone in the community that's able to translate those kinds of documents for us, in addition to using a service or something like that would be able to do that. But for a majority of our website, that kind of serves as, I guess, our translation tool.
Just a note on that, in the draft budget that our maximum tax levy was based on, into our communication budget for doing translation services. But it's more along the lines of what Kevin's talking about, is if they're those sensitive type of documents, so we want to make sure we do get nuances right. It wouldn't be enough to be able to go through and just recreate something like, what do you call it, a native document? Yeah. But it's more so for those special messages we want to get out.
Yeah, because we've realized in the past few years, we've been doing more of that. So we wanted to make sure we could support that and even kind of continue to build on it. So that's where even trying to have some community members that are able to do that for us on a, kind of a contractual level still helps us. And we're also able to give back to the community a little bit too.
And then as a related topic, the last question is, like, I assume that for like the languages we target, we know which ones we would target, based on, if we have some message we need to put out there, we know what other language we target besides English.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think any kind of general message that we put out would be the same languages that we just used for the police letter survey that just went out, which we had English, Spanish, Somali. Yeah, those are three. So those are three predominant languages that we'd use.
Thank you.
And we're also, researching a little bit more on kind of what our parameters would be when we kind of go through that process of translation and working with either an interpreter or a translation service. To one of your other questions real quick, was we've also grown in our ability with PDFs and some other documents to make sure we're linking them correctly. You have to put PDF in parentheses after the document, and make sure your link is going to open. If it's a PDF, it opens in a new window versus another website opens in the same window. So there's a lot that goes into it, and really the nice thing about this process even is where I have kind of gone through a lot of growth in the last years of knowing website accessibility. It also brought in a few other of our team members from the Parks and Rec team and just some others as we've gone through training, because we've all actually done a training on how to kind of operate and add content to the back of the website. So on the training, we always ask Civic Plus to make sure that there's a portion of that 4 hours dedicated to accessibility. So then they go through that, and then also content best practices. So
would we be able to then pop on that main page special, like the water main break to close the road and power outages and things like that? I get it. Somebody would have to get that information probably to you to do that, but I know that's always something that it's nice to have updates on things like that, what's going on and stuff like that. So
yeah, with Civic Plus, there's an actual option to we're at the very top of the website. There's a red bar that can go across it that says like an emergency alert, or water main break, or if we had a Pioneer Trail situation again, or I think just even a few weekends ago we had a power outage in a small part of town. So we'd just be able to kind of put that there on the top, and then it's very noticeable. Any other questions on any? I've got I think one slide left, so might as well, since I put it together. So our next steps then on Thursday is when we'll go live with the new site. So the process, it doesn't really, again, it's redesign in some ways makes it seem like it's a whole new thing, which it does look like that, but it's more of a refresh is kind of how I consider it, because the look is new, all that back end functionality is better and kind of the newest, but the content's the same. So whatever we have kind of as content wise on our website is going to just have a new look to it. So what you'll see, which is still great, because it's nice to kind of finally get our website up to kind of newer standards and also just more flexibility. So you'll see that from 9 to noon. It's kind of that time period is when it'll come aboard, and then Chaska Parks and Recreation.com will work then, and everything will kind of go, hopefully to the place it's supposed to go. But then our work's not done. Like I mentioned before, with accessibility, it's never done. We're going to continue to keep working on that. But on site navigation and content, that's where we still need to kind of drill down into some of the details on where are people going? How do we make sure they can get there as quick as they can, or find it, or where do we want people to go to that they may not be able to find? So that's kind of what I had up there earlier, was we can actually hone in on the searches and like look by year, or look by month, or look by day. So really it's kind of looking through that and finding what content we need to highlight more, finding what content's the most important to make sure we maintain it the best. If that's where people are going, we want to make sure it's got the best stuff on it. So that's kind of a continual goal, but as you'll see, it'll kind of continue to hopefully move forward with those as well.
Just out of curiosity, like what city around here is kind of like, when you look at their website, you're like, that's the standard, or like, is there one that, I take your word that it looks good, but I'm just kind of curious on like who does it right, and who are we going to do it better than now?
So there's actually 2 other cities in our county, at least 2. Victoria and Chanhassen both also use Civic Plus, and they both also and Waconia actually, both, and they all recently, I think, went through a redesign. We actually wanted to go even kind of further out of the Civic Plus kind of complement of materials and we looked actually at, I'm going to say it wrong now, I think, even though, it's not Augustus, what's the Gustavus, and actually used their,
There you
How
go.
much did you pay him to say that?
oh, there you go. I'm glad you asked that question. But yeah, so we actually kind of did a broader search, and I ended up in our process, I talked to the Special Olympics of Minnesota and talked about their website and kind of what they thought was important. Because again, with accessibility as our number one goal, I wanted to kind of talk to them about theirs, and they said that they actually looked at Gustavus's. So we found Gustavus's and we're like, wow, this is amazing. We couldn't quite do all the things that they did, but we were able to, like if you look at this top bar, how it kind of disappears, that's something we got from Gustavus, and then even some of that charcoal color as well, as in using some of those kind of concepts there. And it's called a module, but the Citizen Help Center is something that Civic Plus offers that was the closest thing we found to what a part of Gustavus's website that we wanted to use too. So, but everyone's website that I've seen, even in our county, is a good website. We just wanted to kind of try to be a little bit even more different, or try to kind of push the redesign process as much as we could on kind of having it be clean and clear and, able to be navigated.
I'm glad I asked that question.
John, I think it's really good. I actually just had a conversation with Dan and to this. I think it's actually good that a lot of the communities around here use the same format, because the consistency as far as what people are looking at and how to find things. I was just doing some work today on budget stuff, and I needed to see what other cities were doing, and it used to be so difficult to go in and get things like utility rates or things like that. And now everybody's sort of got the same sort of platform out there, so it's pretty easy. You go to the same place pretty much on every city's website to find this stuff, which to me, I think it's good that we're trying to keep how we operate our website and the content and everything pretty similar from city to city, because I do think that makes it easier for people to navigate.
And we actually, I talked to both the communications person at Chanhassen and Victoria, and talked to them both before we started this process on kind of what lessons were learned and kind of their experience going through it with Civic Plus. So it was good to be able to do that as well.
I think it looks great. I mean, I think it looks really nice. I think the mobile connection is the key, from someone who does recruiting and websites, and more and more people don't have a computer in their home. It's all on their phone, right? So I think that's huge to make that work for accessibility and just ease of use, because 9 times out of 10, even I have a computer in my house, I'm going to pull it up on my phone first before I bother to go get the computer out, right? So.
Question, for the mobile use, is it basically a responsive website or is it just a different website?
It's responsive. So, and I would have tried to show you that, but it's some of the concepts have to actually go live in order to adequately kind of show that mobile view. One other, sorry, I just want to, since I'm up here, got to take the most of my time. The one thing that will also carry over is we actually use UserWay. It's a free accessibility widget that you can put on your website. So it's just another way to help if someone needs a way to kind of change the colors, bigger text. It does also screen reader, keyboard navigation. So that's will carry over to our new site as well. So it's a free version. It's a helpful tool. It doesn't necessarily like do everything, but it's another kind of I guess what they say, tool in the tool belt.
How you access that with that little blue thing on the left?
Yeah. So this little this kind of like the universal accessibility, I guess, icon, and then this just pulls up kind of all the different options. You can make your cursor bigger. Wish I probably could have done that for this presentation. Would have been it's a lesson learned for next time. But this, and then Mike, to your point too, this also does work for, we get also a free kind of accessibility scan as a part of that. So from what we've learned from Civic Plus, it's good to have multiple platforms scanning your site to kind of double check. All right.
Work for everyone involved.
Yeah, it was a great team effort. So everyone really kind of was really willing to kind of participate and to continue to kind of push and make sure we were kind of really thinking it through and doing the best we could.
I know I've been asking like a ton of questions, but it sounds like you guys are doing all the right things. I mean, these are all like industry standards you're following best practices, multiple scans, multiple kind of audits of, accessibility, things like that. That's what would be recommended within, any industry or, in private sector. So those are, definitely best practices of what should be done. So good, and keep it up.
Yeah, and if anyone has accessibility concerns, the one thing we always encourage is to email us too, because if you're not able to use our website, we want you to be able to use our website. So if there's an issue, and Civic Plus has a great help support system that is very responsive. So if there's something we can't handle on our own, they're usually able to either troubleshoot it with us or maybe even fix it on the back end. So we always encourage anybody to, we have an accessibility link at the bottom that has an email to me, and then I can kind of help hopefully fix it and get someone better access to our website.
Awesome. Anyone else for Kevin?
Great job.
Yep.
Thank you for letting me speak tonight and recognizing my visitor presentation.
It's from Minneapolis.
No, that's a great. I think that we were definitely due for that. So thank you for doing that. And after these conversations, I think I can go to work for Geek Squad now.
I still,
Pardon?
I don't even know that Geek Squad's a thing anymore.
I don't know what you're saying, but
She doesn't know. If it's
I don't know that
still
Geek Squad's really even a thing.
all right. One thing I forgot to mention at the beginning that I want to try to do regularly is that if you notice, we don't have our mask on, but we stay social distance. If we do get up and move about, we put our mask back on, and that goes with anyone here, anyone in the audience. We encourage you to keep their mask on unless they come up to speak. So I didn't mention that in the beginning. I want to make sure I hit that. All right. Anyone else in for visitor presentation? Anybody off site? Mike, anybody out there on visitor? Okay. All right. So we will move on to item 7, approve previous meeting minutes. And this one is for September 14th and the 21st council meeting. So if there are no corrections or additions, I'd entertain a motion to approve the previous meeting minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Hubbard,
Second.
second by Councilmember McGraw to approve previous meeting minutes. Discussion. And again, these are for September 14th and 21st. Hearing none in the discussion. Councilmember Hubbard.
Yes.
Councilmember Wong.
Aye.
Councilmember Hatfield.
Yes.
Councilmember McGraw.
Yes.
Everyone should, yes. All right, passes 5-0. Moves us to consent agenda. Again, items that we need approval but don't necessarily need conversation, but anyone can be pulled out to have a conversation on. With that, if there are no, again, no discussions or corrections, I would entertain a motion to approve consent.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Hatfield. Second by Councilmember Wong to approve consent. Discussion. Hearing none. Councilmember Wong.
Aye.
Councilmember Hatfield.
Yes.
Councilmember McGraw.
Yes.
Councilmember Hubbard.
Yes.
Mayor Winchell, yes. Passes 5-0. Moves us to action item number 9. Adopt resolution 2020-82, public hearing to consider certification of delinquent utilities and miscellaneous unpaid fees.
Here, council member, this is an item that you typically see every year where we do take any delinquent utility bills and assess those back to the property owners to make sure that there's a mechanism for us to be able to collect those fees in the next year. One of the things that, so we do have all of them on here. So we have our stormwater fees, electric, sewer, and water fees. The stormwater, water, and sewer are all ones that we've done in the past. The electric is one that we've never really had to do in the past because we've always had a mechanism for being able to be able to shut off electricity if people weren't paying their bills. That's different this year with COVID because we don't have the ability to shut that off. And I think like Noel put in this report, not only are we not shutting off, but we're not charging any penalties or anything like that for payment. But we do want to make sure it doesn't relinquish a person's requirement to have to pay the bill at some time. And so we want to put together in place a mechanism for that to happen, but to really give them the year to be able to do that next year instead of it just coming back all at once, you know, February or whenever that would come off, and you know, then all of a sudden have all those fees due at once. And so what this does is it allows that to be spread over the course of 12 months or and get paid with the 2 tax statements in May and in October. And a lot of times, again, what happens, and I think we've talked about this the last time, a lot of times what happens is that gets wrapped into somebody's escrow on their mortgage payment. So a lot of times they don't actually reconcile that until the following year. So it gives some amount of time for them to be able to catch up on things, but make sure that we have some kind of mechanism in place to capture those. So the we did send out mailed notice 20 days in advance like we have in the past. We had a total delinquency of 21,000. We did have people pay since that time, and so that reduced it down to the 14,927.61. And the request that we would recommend is that that the council does adopt the resolution number 2020-82, which would approve the certification of these delinquent utilities. And then it would authorize us and the staff to get those certified with the county. We have to certify those with the county by the end of November to make sure that they get on for the tax bills for next year. So you'll see in the resolution, it actually lists out each of the specific charges that are out there that total that. And one thing to note is this is a public hearing, so notices went out to everybody so that if they were in disagreement, they'd have an ability to be able to show up and be a part of the discussion if they wanted to. But it is a public hearing, so we do have to officially open and close the public hearing before considering the resolution.
Just a clarifying question. You said by the end of November with the county. So after this, if someone wanted to come pay it, they'd have until when time, or is that window already passed?
Yeah, so how we do this the same with street assessments too is we'll take payment. We can take payment up until the end of November, and then it won't have the interest on it. But once it's actually certified to the county, we don't really have the ability to take it off. It's automatically on. So at that point, then they'd have to be able to pay it with their taxes to be able to do it. But up until the end of November, they can actually pay that without interest, and then we wouldn't certify that with the county.
So that 5% that we charge, does that just get put right on the 6-month statement then as part of that?
It's part of the total amount that goes to the county as certified.
Not to put you on the spot here, but I'm always curious on impact of unemployment, COVID, economic uncertainty. How does this compare to dollar-wise last year? Do you know?
This actually isn't a whole lot different. We've had some discussions about this, and I think other cities have sort of seen this too. It hasn't necessarily been different people that we've seen as not making those payments, and which may or may not then be impacted by COVID, or it could be just that there's a state order now that we can't shut off electricity. I know that there's anecdotally that some utilities have felt that it's been a way for people not to pay their bills, but at the same time, it's not like it's not like these bills go away. And so it's not the greatest strategy if somebody's doing that, because then at some point in time they have to pay it, and it becomes a much bigger issue to have to deal with. So it's higher, but it's not astronomically higher.
But it's higher because we have
electric. But if you, and that's why I started looking at the, and keep in mind electric in general that's the biggest portion of your bill when you get that every month. So you would expect that to be a little bit more. But typically if you don't usually choose to pay one portion of your bill or another. You either pay your bill or you don't. And so just the fact that the sewer fees and water fees are right around that, $3,500 mark, that's not a whole lot different than what we've seen in past years, which indicates to me that we've probably seen some impact, but not a ton. Where we've seen probably bigger impact have been on commercial businesses that lease space. And we don't necessarily have that same agreement with those businesses as we do others, because when you set up your electric service, you have to there's like 3 options that you have. You either have to provide for an upfront deposit, or you have to provide a reference from your previous utility so that we can check to make sure that you weren't delinquent on things before we open an account. Or you can sign statements saying, well, if I'm ever delinquent on my account, we have the ability to come back and assess that. That works when you own a property, but it doesn't work when you don't own a property, because now, if you owned a business and one of your tenants was responsible for their electric usage, you couldn't go and assess that property owner for something that their tenants were doing because the owner of the building didn't enter into that agreement. So I would say from a residential side, like we're seeing here, or businesses that own their building, it's not a whole lot different. Where we're seeing the bigger impact is on those businesses that actually lease space from somebody.
All right, any other questions for Matt? So, but I had a question and I kind of lost it for a minute. So ultimately they have to pay them in their 2021 taxes because it's on there as part of their thing. So
Yep.
we'll get it back the next year. It's not like they can not pay that.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that we have them enter into that is because the ultimate way to make sure that we get paid is the taxes, because that becomes the first lien. It's before anything else on the property. It comes before a mortgage or anything else.
Okay. So they can only play a game if they're playing a game so long because it's going to catch up.
Yep.
Okay.
I said, the way escrows work and stuff, you could probably play the game for a couple of years, but eventually you have to pay your bill.
It just keeps getting, it's like anything else. The longer you wait, the more it costs. Okay. All right. Any other discussion? If not, I would try. We got a public hearing. So if council's done with all questions, I'll move to the public hearing. So I will go ahead and open the public hearing at 7:51. Is there anyone that wants to come forward and speak regarding delinquent fees and unpaid utility bills? No one's moving, so I'll warp ahead to 7:52 and close the public hearing. At this point, if there are no further discussion, I'd entertain a motion to approve resolution 2020-82.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Grau. Second by Councilmember Hubbard. You didn't use your outer voice.
Sorry. Second.
There, I heard it. There we go. All right. So we have a motion and a second adopting resolution 2020-82, considering certification of delinquent utilities and miscellaneous unpaid fees. Discussion. Hearing none. Councilmember Grau.
Yes.
Councilmember Hubbard.
Yes.
Councilmember Wong.
Aye.
Councilmember Hatfield.
Yes.
And Mayor Winchell. Yes. So passes 5-0. All right. Moves us to bills. Anyone have a question on a bill?
Yes.
What?
Hello, is this thing working?
Quick math.
Let's see. Okay, start with page 2. On the item for Bison Builders, there's it's a building permit, but and refund. This is card something. What's the card part refer to?
The Cardinal Street.
Cardinal Street. Gotcha. Page 4, the Barracuda license. Now, is that for the email spam protection, or is that for storage?
Spam.
Spam.
Yep.
Okay. And then page 6, under Electric Pump Incorporated, is that so? The Cloverfield lift station. Is that a spare, or what? Did something happen to the pump that was there?
Yeah, it was general maintenance on there, so it was just a flush valve in there. A pump would be tens of thousands of dollars, but this was just a valve in there that they needed to repair.
Okay.
So it sort of falls under general maintenance when they do that. Those things fail every once they're after so much time.
This is that's a pretty small part.
Yep.
Page 9, Metro Alarm Contractors. There's a couple items for the fluoride door electrical. I'm assuming the fluoride doors for the water treatment plants. But what happened? Was there something that went wrong with it, or?
I know this answer.
Let's let Taylor answer the question.
So fluoride is a highly corrosive material, and the mechanism that, when you key card and it unlocks it, well, the inner parts of the door were corroded, so it was no longer working. So they're slowly replacing the doors because it's doing it to all the doors down there.
No, ask the answer I would have given. No. Yes, you're right.
I just saw that.
Very cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I pay attention.
Okay. Page 10 for MJ Electric. There's 2 items for West Creek. West Creek, it looks like business construction. What's going on over at West Creek?
So this is a project that we're just finishing up now. The majority of it was last year. With the data centers that were out there, and this project came about because of the last data center we had come out there, the final stream data one. We needed to not necessarily increase the capacity of the transformers, but we needed to make it possible for them to have more dedicated feeds coming off of them. And so this project, in essence, I have no idea what a bus is, but they had to put a new bus in.
That's where the fuses go in.
Right.
Yes.
But basically what it allowed, theoretically what it allowed it to do is it allowed us to have more separate feeds, dedicated feeds that were going into different locations. One of the positives of this project is we ended up getting, was it $250,000 or $500,000?
I think it's closer to the 500.
I
don't recall, but
$500,000 from the state of Minnesota to help with this project. So I think overall this project was probably in that $2-3 million mark, and the state ended up paying about $500,000 of it just because of the economic development benefit that it had to the businesses out there. So this ended up being made our substation much better for the future, and we got a good portion covered by the state.
The substation I remember was built in the corner over by what's the north-south road? The English is not north-south, is it?
Well, it's not as far as Victoria.
Well,
It's off this north of Engler. It's like north of Engler on the west of where the United Health data center is. There's a new substation out there, right?
So,
Yeah. And so now that's the one that supplies power to this, and so we added additional bus there because I remember that at one point we had approved a concept plan for another data center north of where the United Health data center was.
Yep. And if that came to pass, we would need to add another transformer to that substation site, which that substation was designed to have 2 transformers. So there is enough room to put a second transformer in there.
That effectively would max out that substation site and the ability to supply power for that whole block of data centers.
Yeah, that's not the only place that they get their power from. They also, they have a feed that's coming from the Minnesota River substation too, that comes right up Crosstown and Victoria drive that goes all the way up there so that they can have a second feed. Ultimately, we'd like to, there is a need for a third substation out in Southwest Chaska that would provide a third feed up there, but would also serve the new corporate stuff out there.
That third one's not built yet, so that's the one that's proposed. That's the one that's proposed in the west side of 212, right? Yeah. Okay.
that'll be in an industrial area?
Yeah. No, but that would be the last. That would be the fully built out. That'd be the last
That's fun to build.
People don't necessarily think they look beautiful.
Yes.
There are probably some of the ugliest things you can put out there.
Oh, I've seen worse.
That's pretty fun. One of the things that we did with that one is we had a lot of landscaping that went around that. And now that I sort of live in the neighborhood where I can see that, you can't even see the equipment anymore. There's trees completely surrounding this thing. So
they get that tucked away.
We spent a lot of money on landscaping on that one. Whew.
But we wouldn't have.
Thank God that's behind us.
But it was like we did it because it's our city. That like Excel wouldn't have done that for us.
no.
So that's another benefit of being our own municipal.
Well, the other thing I'll point out is a benefit is we can do these projects when we want to. And when it's benefit to us, I mean, one of the things that makes us super reliable for our power in town is, we have the new substation up in the PV Industrial Park. We have Minnesota River substation. We have West Creek. We'll have the one out in Southwest Chaska. 4 substations for a 16 square mile city is pretty good. You look at Excel, just in the Southwest metro area, they have 2 major substations. Now, obviously they're bigger, but it only takes something to go wrong at one of those 2 to make a big difference. Reliability, our reliability numbers end up being significantly higher because of that.
There's like some huge power blackout in like the Northeast that wiped out like New York, Boston, and a bunch of other big cities. And that was because there was like one of the big substations. There was one of those giant substations that had like, 50 transformers, and it had there was like a down tree basically shorted it out and then just blew up the substation. And just was ripple effect of all the transformers and knocked out everything. And of course that knocked out the next substation. And so the whole East Coast was out. This is like 1992 or something like that.
Yeah.
And so it like wiped out the whole Eastern seaboard for like a few days. Yeah, it was like really bad. So that's like the big downside of having like too many eggs in one basket like that.
Yep.
Didn't I hear when we were touring that Shakopee, I can't remember what we called it now, that they only have one substation in the city of Shakopee?
No, they have more than one substation.
I could have swore they said that they had one sub, and I thought that was really strange for a size city.
They have the substation that ties into, that's down by that Holiday gas station off of Canterbury to the south of 169.
Oh, yeah.
But
What I'm thinking about is that one by that, what do we call that power generating thing?
Eagle Creek, wasn't it?
I don't know.
yeah,
It's right there, right by 169 is a big one.
yeah,
Well, that's the one, that would be by the Holiday.
yeah, that's the one you're thinking of. But boy, I would have to think they have more than one.
Oh, I remember them saying that, and I thought, but I never verified that.
Yeah, I guess, to think of it, they have the XL one that's on the outskirts of town here, but that serves more as a transmission sort of substation. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe they do. I haven't seen another one, I guess.
That's that
Yeah.
president of MMPA. You'll have to get that in your toolbox.
Okay, last question here is on page 18, there's a Veritiv Corporation. Is that, since it says for HVAC, it's a UPS service. Is that an uninterruptible power supply, or is it something else? Okay.
Yep, and that's our HVAC units are what serve our own internal data center, which I forget how fast they get up to like 140 degrees or something, but it's some ungodly short amount of time.
This is a UPS for the data center's cooling systems, not for the data center itself.
No, it's
Because I know there's another
for
bank.
for the cooling of the data center.
So it gives us enough time to shut down if there's like really out of power, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Okay, that's all I got. Thank you.
All I know is when that cooling system goes down, you see people running in the building very fast.
Know that feeling.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, anyone else on the bill? Okay, with that, I'd entertain a motion to pay the bills.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Wong,
Second.
second by Councilmember Hubbard. Discussion. Hearing none. Councilmember Hatfield,
Yes.
Councilmember Grau,
Yes.
Councilmember Hubbard,
Yes.
Councilmember Wong,
Aye.
Mayor Winchell, yes. Passes 5-0. Forgot who I was. With that, we'll move into other business. How about Councilmember Hatfield?
Just a couple of things. I just wanted to mention that I really love our new series Beyond the Budget. So check that out on Facebook.
Wait to see it this week.
I can't wait.
Brian Jung is going to be the main guest.
Great. But truly, I really do like it. So check that out on Facebook if you haven't. And then speaking of Facebook, is the Night to Unite was canceled, but there was a fake event started for it. So watch out for fake events on Facebook. Some of them are like truly spam, like you can click links and it gets bad. But if you look at who's hosting it, is a good way to tell if it is real or not. But Night to Unite was canceled and there's still a fake one running around out there. So
Yeah, we had that problem all the way up to the weekend of the River City Days.
Yep.
We kept
Yeah. I
Coming
think I
back.
reported that one 10 times myself alone. I know they reported a bunch. Yeah. So they just don't get rid of them. But there's a fake one for Night to Unite. But if you just look at who's hosting it, what like Facebook page is hosting it is a good way to tell if it's real or not. And those are the only two things I had.
Thank you. Councilmember Hubbard.
Oh, yes. I'm so excited to talk into this microphone. So, talking about events, that I was looking to see the specific times, but maybe Kevin, maybe you know, there's the food distribution event this Friday at Getney.
Yeah, noon to 1.
Noon to 1. Okay, noon to
1:30.
noon to 1:30. So that is happening. There's also COVID testing. Well, there was today down in that site, but then there's also at the Chaska Community Park. What is it? The
15th, I think.
see,
The 13th.
I just leave these to Mike.
13th.
On the 13th, there is COVID testing. It's free. Very simple to sign up and go. And if you are not symptomatic, you can still go. If you're, curious and just want to go ahead. And then just for me, so last Monday I met with Matt Hafner over with the water and sewer and got to tour the water treatment facility, so I could learn about the doors and everything else. And I also, looked inside of a water tower and over at the town course, one of the pump houses there. So a really informative tour, kind of seeing where things are at and kind of talking about, the future. And also got to see lots of pictures of when the pipe broke along Pioneer underneath the road. That was
That's the good pictures of.
That's a lot of good pictures of what happened there.
He's gonna show you more of those pictures at the work session.
Preparing a presentation, so I don't want to give anything away. I'm not gonna steal his thunder, but that was a great meeting. So if any of you guys have not done that, it's a great person to meet with. And then today I met with Brian Jung. Speaking of twice in one meeting, right? And had again a good informative meeting. Again, went and looked at, they had just paved the cart paths at the town course, kind of by one of the holes, and also looked at the par 30 being torn up. So good progress already being made over there, people. Otherwise, so just on my tour of Chaska, department to department, you never know where I'll be next. But yeah, that's it.
You're good. All right. Mr. Wong.
Well, Councilors Hubbard and Hatfield covered what I was going to cover, so I'm good. Well, they already covered it.
I'm going to pass. Councilmember Gra.
Yeah, you better not change.
Councilmember Gra, quickly.
I was just curious on election judges, if they're still, how we're doing with sitting with the number of election judges for good shape.
Yeah, we're in good shape. Denise and I were just talking about it today. We actually have a list of, we'll call them backup folks. And it happens every time, as people get closer to election, things happen, life happens, and they need to drop out, whatever the case may be. So we actually have a backup list of folks to draw from in those situations right now. So we're looking good.
Good. And then the only other thing, just because we can't forget about and have complacency, just a reminder to wear masks, social distancing, and get tested if you have symptoms. I do know that I like data, so every Thursday I actually do go out to check the school data because I also have kids in school and curious where that's trending. And it did trend up for the first time in the last 3 weeks. This last week went up from like 13 per 10,000 to about, actually, it was like 11 per 10,000 to about 15, which, there's a little delay in that data. So that's somewhat related to probably the holidays in there and everything like that. So just continue to try to reminder. I know it's been a long time. We've talked about COVID and wearing masks and social distancing. But it does impact, I know football is going to be starting again and all this stuff. And so we want to continue to have normalcy and get back to some of that. It all does impact us having to do what we're being asked to do and continue as we enter these cold months. I think that's in normal influenza seasons coming. So we'll see how that goes this year. So just a reminder, everyone, to keep trying to do the right thing as those numbers start peaking up a little bit here and across the state. But we are in much better shape in Minnesota than our neighbors. So keep doing what we're doing in Minnesota.
And in the Twin Cities compared to outstate.
Another thing too is Chaska High School went back to hybrid model last week. So that's been interesting. So we had half the students are going Monday, Tuesday, disinfect the school on Wednesday. So all students are at home on Wednesday. They basically have win time, and then Thursday and Friday, the other half the students. So it's interesting. I know I know my daughter's kind of
Greatest thing ever.
As a parent speaking.
Out of the house.
my daughter-
Laziness was starting to creep into our house.
Laziness.
Laziness was starting to creep into our house.
My daughter was actually kind of digging the distance learning thing. She was like, I'm just getting the groove. Like, sorry, you gotta go back.
Wasn't quite the same experience I had. No. Good.
That is all I have.
You're good?
Yep.
All right, Kevin, anything?
The high school football, we are working with the high school on broadcasting the football games on Comcast Channel 14.
Awesome.
Okay, and I don't know if you heard that at home. What he said is that we are partnering with the school to broadcast the high school games on Comcast 14. So this Friday would be the first one? So this Friday would be the first one. I think the games are 7 o'clock, if I remember right.
Check your local listings.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain it's 7 o'clock. So if you don't feel comfortable going to the game, check out Comcast 14, and the game will be broadcast live. Cool. We used to do that back in the day.
We used to actually have a hardwired system that went into the school, and then that system just sort of failed. And now that things are a lot more mobile, at least equipment wise, it's easier to do that.
Is there a cap on the number of people who can go actually attend in person?
I think it's 250. I remember this question got asked somewhere else, and I think and that's all, doesn't count the players, but it would count band members, any extra people. So I think there was I haven't seen anything what Chaska's doing.
Public venues can have up to 50% capacity, or 50% capacity up to 250.
Isn't that, don't they limit it to like each player gets 2 fans?
Yeah, I haven't heard
Something like that?
I haven't heard.
So that the family can get there? And then I don't know how that works for the visiting team.
Guess they don't get to come.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm glad somebody's got it figured out. All right, anything else, Kevin? You're good?
I'm good.
All right, Mike? Luke? Nate?
I'm good.
What's your name? Matt?
I did send it out to you guys, but just sort of announcement about we mentioned the Part 30 is underway. We are going to have a official groundbreaking next Tuesday at the 13th at 11 a.m. Part 30, and we're going to tape it so that people can see it on TV or on our social media if they want, and get sort of a sense about what that Part 30 project's going to be. Just through that, but it'll be a time for us to sort of talk about the project, but then also for Learning Links to be able to thank their supporters too for that. And we're trying to get local media, and then hopefully some regional television coverage of that, because there was a story that was done on one of the TV news stations early on in that. So we're sort of hoping that they can have sort of a follow the story as it goes through.
The contact Schwartz?
That's, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Have you talked to Dave Schwartz?
That's
We talked a couple weeks ago, and he lived in Chaska.
yeah, no, it'd be good to have that, because it's just such a unique project. So, but yep, that's coming up next week.
Okay, anything else? All right, a couple things. I know the letter came out from the PD, I think last week. Please make sure you take a look at it. If you got any comments, fill it out and return it back. That is part of the community conversations that we initially had. This is the final piece that we can put everything all together to see if there's changes to be done and whatever. But please take the time to look at that, fill it out, and return it, please. So, did Susan Art, did she get the job in Mankato? Did I see that?
She did.
She did. Okay, so the Waconia.
I think she said her last day is November 20th in Waconia. And then she starts up right around December 1st for Mankato.
So Susan Arndt was the city administrator in Waconia, but she was the assistant here for a time. But I knew she was in the running, and I saw some piece that, but I clicked on it, it didn't give me any answers. So I assumed that she maybe did get it. So congratulations to Susan on her new job. Went by the Hammers property. They are moving dirt there. That is amazing. They said, I think Aaron Kuzma said 550,000 cubic yards of dirt is being moved up there.
Yeah.
I can't put that in numbers, but it's a lot.
Their intent is to get utilities to some of the first roads in this fall yet. So,
That main road, it's kind of starting to take shape of where that'll be now. So interesting. And there's two places you can see them, be up behind Mount Pleasant Cemetery, the city cemetery, or just up on the site by the Hammers house. So, but a lot of activity up there. The other thing is tomorrow at 11 o'clock, we're going to have ribbon cutting for Lyman Boulevard and 41 project. So I believe it's to the east of 41. I read it, but I forgot already.
oh, it's on the west side.
It's on the west side.
It's on the west.
So by Lifeco.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
I suppose I should know where to park for
Yep,
that?
on the west side.
It's basically
it'll
just,
tell ya.
there's like just right to the west.
There's a lot of
There's
parking.
like a
on
map
that
in
side.
the
Just
email.
park in the middle of the roundabout.
There's a map in the
It's a
email.
scout street over there, so there's lots of parking. Oh,
Drive in the center of that roundy thing and just park there.
Just gonna park right up in there.
You'll be good there. All right, that's all I have. We have another meeting. Today's the 5th, so we have one on the 19th.
that will be our work session beforehand for our utility funds.
But we'll be back here 7 o'clock on the 19th. With that, I would look for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Councilmember Wong,
Second.
second by Councilmember Gra to adjourn. Councilmember Gra,
Yes.
Councilmember Hubbard,
Yes.
Councilmember Wong. Aye. Councilmember Hatfield,
Yes.
Mayor Winchell, yes. We are adjourned. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks for joining us and have a good week. See ya.